welcome to another broadcast of Philosophic Perspectives on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. All past shows are archived and you can find them at ArtistFirst.com. And now, here's your host, a man who has been mistaken for Dr. Strange. It's Arthur D. Schwartz.
Well, I might be mistaken just for being strange. I've been called strange many times, so I'm comfortable with that title. Now, as this is really a very interesting show because we've got a special guest tonight, and well, I'll announce who it is in just a second. But I'll give you a hint. He's a host of a show on the ArtistFirst Radio Network. So, but what we're going to be talking about is the subject of UFOs in general and alien, contact and that type of thing. Let's say it's primarily along the subject of UFOs in the broad sense. And, as a philosopher, I'm very interested in the limitations of knowledge and the justification of belief. And so for many, many years, a primary area of my concern philosophically in terms of UFOs, because it's such a major issue that seems to be not taken seriously by mainstream press and is laughed off. I mean, it's becoming a little bit, it seems to be, getting to be more acceptable. It's very commonly said that there's life on other planets. It's just that the idea of intelligent species coming here is laughed off in the mainstream media. And so the question of what justifies, truth is very important. And the UFOs are a fascinating way of looking at that. Another area is the paranormal, or specifically what I would describe as parapsychology. Specifically parapsychology, which would include things like telepathy and precognition and psychokinesis and things like that, remote viewing, clairvoyance. And so tonight we have as my guest Kevin Estrella, who is the host of Monuments on Mars. Let me just get the title right. No, excuse me. Pyramids on Mars, UFO Radio, correct? Sorry. Pyramids on Mars, UFO Radio. I always confuse the title of your show with the book by Richard C. Hoagland, Monuments on Mars. And he's a very interesting guy. He is not only the host of the show, but not only does he have a strong interest in ufology, but he also claims to be, having contact with intelligent aliens. And so what we have here is those two interests I have coming to some kind of terms of how we would justify the truth of a UFO. In terms of, the word is just, I object to the word, actually, but we'll get into that. But the spaceships from another planet, and what would it take, other than, landing in the White House and shaking hands with the president, as they say. And the same thing with parapsychology. And while I was preparing for this show, I realized, these two mega issues, UFOs and parapsychology, which seem to mainstream science just completely rejects out of hand. They laugh at it. If you take it seriously in academia, you could lose your tenureship and so forth and so on, lose your funding. Yet it might just be that when we finally do make contact, or when the contact has been verified, both in terms of contact with these biological beings and the actual ships that we see, that might be what it actually takes to finally make that advance in knowledge. And it seems to me it's coming sooner rather than later, with technology advancing exponentially. I think it's within the current time frame, or certainly within a generation or two at the most, and likely probably much sooner than that. So anyway, without any further ado, let me introduce the host of Pyramids on Mars, UFO Radio, Kevin Estrella. How are you doing?
I'm doing awesome, Arthur. How are you doing? Thanks for having me on.
Okay. Well, no problem. Sorry about mispronouncing or missaying the name of your show.
Monuments on Mars is cool, too. I love Richard Hoffman.
And the monuments are pyramids, I think, right? Yeah.
He's speaking of the pyramids on Mars, the face on Mars, the whole Cydonia region. You know, these
right,
five-sided
Cydonia,
pyramids the five-sided pyramids are like a few miles away from the face on Mars.
Right.
And there's all kinds of strange mathematical lineups and stuff with that whole area.
I find it interesting that the name of that area of Mars, Cydonia, is also a name of, or similar to the name of that city in Arizona, right? Sedona, Arizona?
Yes.
Could that be purely coincidental?
Well, actually, you know what? I can tell you right now, I have a friend who he discovered who his true identity is, and he is actually in Sedona right now because he was called to go down there to do some light work energy. He met with Cynthia Crawford, who's a guest on my show. He's staying with her, and he's been going down there doing some very special work with energy alignments going on and healing the place where the first nuclear blast went off. There's all kinds of crazy stuff. He's been updating me right now in regards to some things that he's been working on. But I'm not going to get into his story because I can spend a whole episode.
But Sedona is known for that, right? Sedona, Arizona? Isn't it? Yep. Or am I thinking of another? Yeah, I mean, isn't it kind of coincidental? I mean, really? I mean, is it just a semantic thing, or because?
Well, it could be, but it does have very special. There's special, something special about Sedona.
Right, exactly. I've read the magnetic fields or whatever. So listen, Kevin, you're relatively new to ArtistFirst Radio. I mean, I am too, relatively, but I've been on a couple of years now. I think it's a little bit more recent for you, and it seems like you've got a really, really interesting show. And I want to just tell the folks out there, you have a great sense of humor. And as they are going to learn from, one of your two ads that we're going to play tonight for your show, one in particular, I won't give it away, but it's a beauty. And and Scott, I didn't realize that. I mean, Kevin actually wrote that script, and you know what? He could almost use the voice that he paid to have someone do. He can do it almost as well. So he's a pretty talented guy. But Kevin, listen, why don't you just, I'm really interested in your show, and I want to know more about it. And why don't you just tell us about what you're doing and your show and your interests and so forth.
Well, my show, Pyramids on Mars UFO Radio, is if you have to go back to my beginnings, I've always been interested in the UFO phenomenon. I became more interested in it back in the 90s when Bob Lazar information was coming out about reverse engineered technology from Area 51, and then I really started to study UFOs and reading Bud Hopkins' books on alien abductions and all that kind of stuff, and really educating myself. And I spent many years doing it. But it goes a lot deeper than that, because I always felt like it was my calling to educate myself into this, and I wanted to help educate other people in regards to the truth of the extraterrestrial presence on our planet and the artifacts that are in our solar system. So when I created my music, Pyramids on Mars, I'm an instrumental rock guitar player, and my style is very much in the style of Joe Satriani. But I wanted to marry the two together of my passion for instrumental rock with the raising of consciousness of the UFO, the extraterrestrial presence on this planet. Little did I know that that was actually my purpose here on Earth all along. And that was confirmed August 21st, 2014, when an interdimensional craft flew within 100 yards of me across my backyard. And then it opened up a portal, and then it went into it, all before my very eyes.
Now, did anyone else see that?
That's the whole thing. I was the only witness to it, and that's a whole long story in its own. But I reported the whole thing to MUFON, and it was investigated. And in fact, almost a year later at the Alien Cosmic Exhibition in Brantford, they were doing a presentation on my case because they said it was one of the most authentic cases they came across. What made it authentic was the way I described the way the craft looked as it was moving away. Because I'll explain exactly what it was that I saw. So I go out onto my deck. It's 10:30, exactly 10:30 at night. I live in the city of Hamilton, Ontario, and it's a city of 500,000. I live in a suburban area in a very, it's thousands of houses. It's just off of one of the busiest streets in the city. And 7 seconds after I step out onto my deck, my neighbor on my right side, they have this big tree, and then this object starts to appear to come from behind the tree. And at first, when it stuck out, I thought it was a meteor because it was kind of glowing almost like hot coals. It was orange and red, and it had this steam, this mist that was kind of coming off the top of it and along the bottom of it. And then when it finally got into my full view, it was a desk. It was only, as I say, it was 100 yards away from me. Maybe it was 800 to 1,000 feet above the ground, but it was really close to me. And it was just like, it was moving at the speed of a helicopter, going really slow. And when I was looking at it, I didn't know what I was looking at. I thought at first, as I said, I thought it was a meteor, but it wasn't a meteor because it was like moving at the speed of a helicopter. The meteors don't do that. Right. And then it went across the distance of my backyard. But the other thing that was really strange about this object was that it was two-dimensional. And what I mean by that is that it looked like, if you can imagine a solar eclipse, the solar eclipse looks like a hole in the sky. It's got height, it's got width, it has no depth. It looks like a hole in the sky. That's what this thing looked like. It had no depth. It was just orange and red, kind of tie-dye-ish disc with this mist that was going off the top of it and the bottom of it. What I finally realized almost 6 months later, because this is how strange this thing looked, it took me that long to figure out what I was looking at, it was actually, this object was covered in plasma, and that's what was giving it that mist-like look. It went across the distance of my backyard and then started making its way south towards Bimbrook. As it was turning away, it was becoming blacker and blacker in appearance to the point where it had no light source at all. But simultaneously, as that was happening, there was this swirling white vortex that was forming in the front of this craft, almost like an umbrella, and it was spinning. It was some kind of vortex that was forming in the front of it, and then it just made its way off into the distance, and I couldn't see it anymore. So, I'm just completely freaked out. And I finally, after it finally went away, that's when it clued in, when I finally realized what it was that I saw. And I knew that this thing could not be from this planet, because it looked like nothing that I've ever seen in a movie, ever on TV, ever in a book, ever. Nothing can describe what this thing looked like.
But was it daytime or evening, did you say? Daytime?
No, it was nighttime. 10:30.
Yeah, 10:30 at night. Oh, I see. Okay. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, and there was not a cloud in the sky, so it was only 1,000 feet away from me. Moved across the distance of exactly my backyard and went south. Now, what gave MUFON the verification, realizing that what I was looking at was authentic, because they check star systems, they check, comets, any kind of anomalies that are going on that night. But he said what gave it away for them was that the way I described it as moving away, because as it kind of turned away from me and had more of its tail, that's when the light source, it became where it had no light source. It was this dark object. And they said that is a physical phenomenon of anything that's radiating with plasma, because you can see plasma from certain angles, but other angles the plasma stream disappears. And that's what they realized, that I was actually looking at an actual physical, a physical object that was in the sky.
Oh, I see. It's interesting. You mentioned Bob Lazar. We talked about that the other night. Like I mentioned to you, I've always, as long as I can remember, I've been fascinated by UFOs, like a lot of people, like, craft from other planets and so forth. But when I heard his interview, that he was interviewed by Art Bell, Coast to Coast. This is probably probably close to 20 years ago, and it's fascinating. But the kind of technology that sometimes we associate with the UFOs are sort of anti-gravitational. Would you agree? So, in other words, so what you saw the plasma field behind, almost like a rocket engine, you would say, right? The plasma, right? Sort of like what would come out of a rocket, right?
Yeah. This was kind of this just covered the entire craft like a skin. Just completely.
With like a glow. Like a radiant glow.
Like a radiant glow. The entire thing was covered in plasma. Like it definitely had a solid shape to it because I could see the outline of this disc, but this plasma was streaming off the top of it and along the bottom of it, kind of like almost like mist.
Well, in the opposite direction of its motion, right? So when you saw it from the tail, so it was good.
It was kind of coming off the tail. Yeah.
Right, because it resisted.
Blowing off the tail like mist. It was really pretty.
Yeah, that's another interest I have of the possible technologies involved. We talked about. You mentioned that you're a musician, and I listened to some of your music. And I think you're really quite accomplished, and you use it to try to, as you mentioned, express your spirituality that you've gained. Am I jumping ahead?
You're right in the nail. Exactly.
Okay, at this particular episode, at this particular experience that you had, maybe is one of the three pieces that you have that relate to that experience?
Yes, that would be Dream Division.
Okay,
and the reason why is because when you start to understand the UFO phenomenon, this is not a nuts and bolts phenomenon. This is a consciousness phenomenon. I'm trying to talk in words for people to be able to understand, because there was changes in my consciousness that had already taken place through my music. I had my moment of awakening. I would call it like my Nirvana moment when I was in university listening to Jimi Hendrix music. When all of a sudden I was air guitaring to Foxy Lady off of Live Monterey, and I was filled with so much passion. And when I hit the first guitar note in the guitar solo, my mind consciousness expanded, and I was in this new. I was connected to Source. That's all I can explain. I was in a different. I was connected to almost like the Akashic records. I was one with the universe, and I never wanted to leave that state of consciousness. And ever since that moment, I have always tried to get myself back into that state of consciousness when I write my music. So when I'm writing my music, it's coming from. It's almost like I'm not even writing my music. It's almost like auto download. The song is finished before I even know it. It's just coming from a deep part from within me, from a higher source. And this is all part of this phenomenon. Now, this song that we're going to play is very important because Grant Cameron has done studies on this phenomenon of downloads and how many musicians get these song downloads where it's almost like they're not even writing the songs, or they heard a song in a dream. Mozart had this kind of thing happen. Dream Division came to me in a dream. I really didn't write this song.
Right.
And I explained it to you where I was having this dream where I was watching Joe Satriani. He was being interviewed by some guy from MTV, and Joe Satriani was sitting at a recording console, and the guy's asking him, "Hey, I heard you work on a new album. You got anything we can play for us?" And Joe was like, "Oh yeah, we got these new bed tracks for this new song we're playing."
Yeah.
And then he starts playing this song, and it was Dream Division. And I'm listening to it going, whoa, that sounds so cool. I wish I could write something like that. Wait a second, he didn't write this song. I wake myself up, I go down to the studio, and I start writing the song that I heard in this dream.
Right.
And honest to God, there was in the dream, there was no conscious effort at all. It was like somebody turning on the radio, you're listening to a song, they turn to you and say, "This song doesn't exist, here you go, it's yours."
Right. It's sort of like autonomic writing or something like that,
It was not even that. It was like there was no effort. It was just like brain dead, boob tube, watching TV, no effort at all, just watching something and it's given to you. It came from somewhere. I don't know where it came from. Right.
Well, why don't we listen to the music and Kevin? So I'll let you signal to Scott when you want to come back, or we can listen to the whole tune, however, whichever you prefer. Okay. Okay. So Scott, why don't you go launch into that piece?
We can probably play like 2 or 3 minutes of it. 2 or 3 minutes is fine.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. So Kevin, you can step in and let the folks know.
Okay. Sure.
When we come back. I think we're back, right?
We're back.
Are we back, Scott?
We are back.
Okay. All right. So now, Kevin, why don't you, explain how that music relates to what we're talking about? Basically, that experience when you saw that ship in your backyard.
Yeah, it's there's so many pieces to understanding. Like, I had to kind of reverse engineer a lot of my life to kind of make sense of where everything was going, because when the craft appeared, it was calling for me to wake up, and this is kind of how our extraterrestrial family do this. Particularly the Greys. I believe the Greys are the ones who are awakening me, and this is kind of how I found out through my other interviews, guests that I interview. their experiences are very similar in regards to their, basically, okay, it's time for you to wake up and get to work now, and that was what it was. It was my calling card. They weren't going out for beer. No, they were not. They were actually coming to wake me up.
I got it. Go ahead. Go ahead.
Yes, because long and short of it was almost a year later. This is where the synchronicities started to begin, and the consciousness downloads started to really take place. It was almost a year later where I found out there was this alien cosmic exhibition where all these top UFO speakers were speaking, and when I went online to see what was going on, I saw Grant Cameron's presentation. That's when I completely freaked out, because his presentation, and he's the expert on this, his presentation literally was extraterrestrials and musicians, and why extraterrestrials are contacting musicians to help raise consciousness and awareness. And I was like, oh my God, this is about me. I'm supposed to go and see him. And it was, I'm not kidding, this is what it was. It was like I was being called. It was like, this is a real awakening. And when I went to go see Grant, that's when my whole life changed, because that's when I found out from MUFON that they were doing a whole presentation on my UFO sighting, which I had no idea that they were. And then I found out they told me that I was the only one who reported it and had contact with the craft, and I didn't understand how that was possible, being in the city of 500,000. To have this thing was like only 1,000 feet off the ground. It looked like it was on fire. It was 50 feet across diameter. It must have been reported by hundreds of people. Nobody else saw it. There was no other report. Wow. And then Grant Cameron was there to be able to basically explain everything to me as to why that was. And then he basically concluded that they were in direct contact with me.
It's kind of put together for you. Well, music is so deeply embedded in the subconscious, and that's why I think the music kind of brings the whole thing together, because the music, just the way you woke up and you had this composition written in your head. It's because it's just tapping into all these things going on in your life and that you're not even aware of yet. But anyway, I think because we have a few breaks tonight, I want to take a break now, the first break, and we'll be right back.
Artist First, bringing you the best shows on the planet and off-planet. Our newest show, Pyramids on Mars, UFO Radio, features musician alien contactee Kevin Estrella. His latest release, Echo Cosmic, has critics hailing it the finest instrumental album since Joe Satriani's Surfing with the Alien. Check out all of Kevin's awe-inspiring guitar playing at pyramidsonmars.com. There you will find all kinds of interplanetary goodies. Music, merch, and videos to stimulate your senses and broaden your mind. Check out the amazing Alien Species t-shirt collection. So photorealistic, people will be stopping in the streets to look at you. As well, Kevin has released his very own series of instructional guitar video lessons, teaching his unique approach to neoclassical and classically influenced lead guitar playing. All this and more at pyramidsonmars.com. Pyramids on Mars. Music truly out of this world.
This is Arthur D. Schwartz. Beliefs and disbeliefs can be very powerful. Much like philosophy, hypnotism is concerned with belief. Hypnotherapy, a practical application of hypnotism, may largely be described as the practice of removing false beliefs that form mental blocks to success, to happiness, and to well-being. In my hypnotherapy and philosophical counseling practice, I combine my work in philosophy with hypnotism in order to clear mental blockages that can occur on both conscious and subconscious levels. A mental block may be conscious or subconscious. and can be expressed, for example, in the form of anxiety, low self-esteem or low motivation, bad habits, tobacco habits, weight gain, low performance, and much more. If you are interested in using hypnosis and the power of the mind to overcome mental blocks and barriers that have emerged in your life, please feel free to give me a call at 617-964-4800 or visit www.integralhypnosis.com. That's INTEGRAL hypnosis.com.
This is Robert Kramer. Join me here on Artist First the second Wednesday of every month for The Robert Kramer Show at 11 p.m. 10 Central, here on the Artist First Radio Network.
Thanks for being one of the cool people and listening to Philosophic Perspectives on the Artist First Radio Network. Past shows are archived. You can pick them up at ArtistFirst.com. Now back to your host, Arthur D. Strange. Wait, Arthur D. Schwartz.
Okay, I tell you, I am strange. At least I've been told that many times. So they must be right. Now, actually, I just want to just jump in and just tell the folks that, as you can tell already probably, that Kevin and I are collaborating a little bit on Artist First Radio. And I will be Kevin's guest in just a couple of weeks, right? On May 2nd. May 2nd. Yeah, it's a couple of weeks minus a day, yeah. On his show, Pyramids on Mars. And, of course, you'll find it on the Artist First page. And look forward to talking with you or having you hear us again in a couple weeks. So, okay. Now, we dealt with that piece of music that we played sort of really captured, I think, the essence, really, of music as expressing this incredible phenomena that was very extremely moving to you and actually was transformative, I think, in your life. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
Transformational.
Yes.
And so, I mean, that's really the... What's that? Mm-hmm.
It's in more ways than I realized, and the more and more that I've learned, because with this UFO phenomenon, and they kind of basically, the way our ET family moves us around, it's kind of like they move us around like chess pieces. So we end up meeting with people who are supposed to help us in our mission and in our journey to learn to get the information that we need in order to be able to complete our missions. And I'm meeting with people, and I'm learning even more of how powerful music is to changing not only your consciousness, but actually even affecting your DNA. And this is what I'm learning. And so I'm still a student, and I'm learning more so I can be able to complete my mission here.
Right. Yeah, interesting. I'll share with you from my what I'm doing. I'm beginning work on a book on relating to parapsychology, and that I think you and I mean, have that same motivation there, because my interest is very much like yours in terms of that missing link that we. I think the human race, we have the so-called right brain and the left brain, and we are, generally speaking, too much tied up on that left brain, which is just the logical thinking, where you have the right brain and that other sphere of, possibly paranormal or parapsychological, that sort of psychic zone, you might say, and I think that's where I think you and I very much agree. I'm all for logic and rational thinking, but I do feel there's a missing link that we still need to achieve for human beings to actually evolve to where they need to be. All right. Yeah. So now, Kevin. What's what do we? Give me a little help here. Do you want to launch into your next song, or is there a particular? Do you want to talk about your experiences right now with these advanced extraterrestrials?
Actually, I think because we're still on, we're actually on the topic of consciousness. I can explain a little bit more about this connection with this higher consciousness, because you're absolutely correct in regards to this bridging of this gap. Because Grant Cameron is actually he studied this for quite a long time in regards to this. When people are able to shut down their left analytical brains, whether it be through psychedelic drugs or whatever, or through a stroke, or something else, that you connect with a much higher consciousness of a multidimensional level with your other side of your brain, and there's other processes that are going on. I mean, it's like these autistic kids who are these.
Right.
I'm trying to think of savants.
Idiot savants, they call them. Right.
Yes, who can these incredible calculations faster than computers. And it's not that they're sitting there calculating. There's something else that's going on. They're accessing another portion of our consciousness. And it's the same thing with other people who have strokes, and all of a sudden they're connected to the universe, or they do psychedelic drugs like LSD, and they suddenly realize that they are connected to the universe. There's other stuff too. I mean, even Sting, he describes the experience that he had taking this I forget the heck this stuff was, but the same kind of experience. But it goes beyond that. It's more than that. That our consciousness is, we only access 10% of our consciousness abilities, and it gets pretty deep in regards to the reasons why that is. But it's because a lot of our DNA has been purposely blocked, but it can be unblocked. There are ways of being able to access your DNA and be able to unblock these chains in your DNA to activate more DNA in order to be able to have ability to have connections to this higher consciousness. I know this may sound kind of really crazy and spacey, but this is the kind of thing that I've been learning through my guests who have been with the Greys, who have learned through the Greys, who have learned through other extraterrestrial species, who have studied this stuff. And it's not just coming from one source. It's coming from multiple sources. They keep talking about the same thing. So I'm kind of have an idea of what I'm talking about.
Right. I was going to jump in and say, well, probably a little bit of the devil's advocate. The question would be, yes, a savant, can an idiot savant? I think that sounds like a rather not a nice thing to say, but I think that's what you call them, idiot savants, and they have all these memories of incredible things that that movie Rain Man depicted that person who can tell you what any date and can tell you the weather and so forth and so on. They could argue that, well, that's just yes, it's amazing, but it's just the wiring of the brain. It would not necessarily point to a higher consciousness. In other words, when we talk about consciousness, I think you and I think we agree that it's a kind of immateriality as opposed to simply the brain. But then again, you could argue that, and of course, another subject I'm interested in is the singularity. Ray Kurzweil and all that talk about technology just exponentially exploding and surpassing, it becoming unpredictable because it goes beyond human intelligence. It's machine intelligence. And so I think that what's happening is the human race, whether it's just purely material based or whether it's psychic, there has some kind of immaterial consciousness component that goes beyond cause and effect as we know it. The thing is, as I open up the show, no matter how advanced we become or how far we go in the next few generations, there probably will always be that skeptical bedrock in the human mind that's going to keep us from going further. And I think the more I think about it, when contact actually happens, when it actually becomes acknowledged universally that there's intelligent life, and then those species who would be vastly more superior in their intellect and ability than we are, and if they show some of these things that we're referring to, which kind of transcend what we believe is possible, it might just be the discovery or the development of relationships with extraterrestrial beings and extraterrestrial intelligences that might actually be the stepping stone that the human race might need. I mean, some believe, and as do I think we've had a little help by other beings in early on in our evolution. But what I'm saying now is maybe now much further into our evolution, we may need them again to actually take us the next leap. Yeah.
You are absolutely right. You are absolutely right. You're completely on the right track in regards to where this is going, because what is actually the problem is that because of our educational systems, our government systems, and our religious systems, they have created a certain kind of matrix of reality in regards to these boundaries of what is. And we have been made to believe that all there is the physical world. Anything that we can measure, that's all we have to deal with. If it can't be proven through scientific method, then we pass it aside. And you have to realize is that, and the reason why the Greys have not come out and landed in the White House is because they have a law of non-interference, and they have much patience. They've been around for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, watching us, helping us to mature, and hoping that we will wake up, so to speak. But that is why. But now they're trying to speed things up, and that's why there are more of us hybrids who are coming onto the planet. Why there's more reincarnations or incarnations of Greys as humans now on the planet, who I interview, who are helping us to raise our consciousness, to help us speed up, to get us to wake us up, because that is the problem. People are too busy thinking in this three-dimensional world, realizing that your consciousness exists without your body. These beings are so much more advanced, not just scientifically, but they are more advanced spiritually. And you have to understand that their technology is merged with their consciousness. It's activated through their consciousness. The craft itself has consciousness. The craft itself has consciousness. Mm-hmm. They use tools that are activated through their consciousness. Everything, and they understand this because they understand everything as energy. Everything is energy, and there's no separation. And they are able to interact with different consciousness. And they're trying to help us to break out of the boundaries of these walls that have been created by these institutions, so that you can expand your consciousness. It's more than we realize. When you start to realize that your consciousness is more than just what's inside your brain. Your brain doesn't create consciousness. Consciousness exists without your brain. When you can finally understand that, then you can start to access the higher levels of consciousness, because we are multidimensional beings. And that's hard to get into, but it's long.
No, right. Now, I'm reading a book by Robert. Oh my gosh, Doctor. But it's called Biocentrism, and Dr. Robert Lanza, and he told me at quantum physics, and you really see in quantum physics in the so-called double slit experiment that it's almost of these photons. They are conscious, seemingly, because they encompass all possibility. But I'm just watching the clock. So what I want to do, this is going great, but I want to get the next spot in. So, Scott, we're going to take another break now, and we'll be back in a few minutes. Now,
In Ethical Empowerment, Virtue Beyond the Paradigms, Arthur D. Schwartz presents an ethical theory that is a framework for evaluating moral conundrums that go beyond legalistic rulemaking, dogmatism, and preconditioned thinking. The book is as much an ethical framework for unconventional ideas as it is for staying with convention. Ethical Empowerment is a manifesto of non-doctrinaire perspective. Ultimately, the hypnotic thinking of ideology and dogmatism can only be overcome by returning to the true source and essence of morality, which is nothing less than universal love. Discover how the philosophically liberating approach of the ethical empowerment can be applied to the range of ethical, social, and political controversy. Read about a plan to eliminate all political parties. Entertain the possibility of an overhaul of the patent system and its replacement with a system that rewards inventors while eliminating monopolistic control of patents and technological suppression. Many other transformative ideas are discussed in the book, including issues related to the monetary system, real estate, scientific paradigms, and a rational approach to conspiracy theory. While ethical empowerment will challenge your mind to consider new perspectives, the ethical challenge is always to keep the diversity, depth, and breadth of perspective within the boundaries of love. Ethical Empowerment is available at Amazon.com and most online booksellers in both print and e-book editions.
Hello, Arnold Schwarzenegger here with an important announcement. You may remember me from movies like The Terminator, but I would like to talk about one particular movie where I go to Mars. There is this mountain called Pyramid Mountain, and all this crazy alien shit goes on inside it. Do you think that's all science fiction? Think again, my friend. That's why you have to tune in to Pyramids on Mars UFO radio show on ArtistFirst.com. My friend Kevin Estrella, he is in a band called Pyramids on Mars. He has also been contacted by aliens. This guy has been a guest on over 15 UFO radio talk shows, so you have to listen to him. There's something going on, and it can't be ignored. He interviews people who have been abducted by aliens. He interviews alien-human hybrids. This is no bullshit. So get to the chopper! Do whatever you have to do and go listen. Get your ass to Mars. Pyramids on Mars. UFO Radio.
Hi, this is John Mayer, and you're listening to Artist First Radio.
Thank you for tuning in to Philosophic Perspectives on the Artist First Radio Network. Let's get back to your host. It's Arthur D. Schwartz.
No, Arthur D. Strange.
Yes, you are, Arthur.
Did you listen to that ad, that Arnold Schwarzenegger ad? I mean, Kevin, I'm really impressed that you got a former governor and a big movie star to do an ad for you. That's
he's
incredible.
a good friend of mine. Good
wow,
friend of mine.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Get to the chopper!
Great ad. That's really great. Well, let's pick up for where we left off. So my question now is, where did we leave off, Kevin?
We were talking about consciousness, about bridging this gap between where we think our consciousness, where we think the consciousness of or the boundaries of our consciousness are, and the limitations that have been put on us due to our educational upbringing, and what is truth, what is actual truth. So.
Right. I just went a little bit unconscious for a moment. That's why I didn't remember. That's true. So that is actually, an overriding theme. But I would like, I know you have 3 music clips, and I would really like to get to at least one more, if not both. So, do you want to talk about one or the other now?
Yes,
would that be a good idea?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Sure.
Okay.
I think actually, because I haven't played this one in a while, The song "Never Forgot You," which is actually a more melodic, sad song. This was actually the very first Pyramids on Mars song that I ever wrote, and it came from a very emotional state of mind that I was in.
Okay.
And I was reaching out for somebody who I had lost touch with, and the song was basically about I'll never forget you. And so the song is a very emotional song, and it means a lot to me. Actually, I'm literally crying when I'm playing the guitar. It's my heart is
Okay. All right. Yeah, that was really great. That was really great, Kevin. Do you have a few things you want to say about that? Additional?
Yes, that song was the very first Pyramids on Mars song that I ever wrote, and it was really incredible for me in the writing process because it was my first experience working with recording in a recording console to be able to layer music. And then when I, all the music, the way I write stuff, the rhythm guitars, the drums, the bass, the keyboards are all done, and then the last thing that I put on the track is the lead track, which is the vocals basically. And when I started writing those melodies and hearing how beautiful it was, it just brought tears to my eyes. And then it just the music just plays itself. The emotion comes out, and the song, you become the song, and that's basically what it is.
Right. Right. Well, that's art, isn't it? I mean, the subject and object, when they become one.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's do something. I wanted to flow with you on this. But why don't you? Why don't you talk about your show a little bit? What are your goals for Pyramids on Mars?
The goal of my show was actually inspired by a presentation that I saw Grant Cameron do, because he's very factual in regards to the information that he gathers, and he started off studying UFOs from a nuts and bolts perspective. But then when it just wasn't answering the questions. He realized that in order to really understand what's going on, you have to talk to the people inside that craft. And then it means you have to speak to the experiencers who have been on board the craft. And so then he started spending a lot of time with the experiencers. And that's where he really started to understand what was really going on behind the closed doors. The interactions with these extraterrestrial beings, what they were teaching, their telepathic ways, their spiritual ways, their unconditional love, and really understanding what it was, the message that they were trying to teach us and try and help us. Because they're doing this from behind the scenes, so to speak. Myself, I have never had conscious telepath or conscious communication with an extraterrestrial being. It frustrates the hell out of me, but I understand why they are doing it the way they are. And I'm not the only.
Wait a minute. Can you back up? So you have never. Say that again.
I've never met an extraterrestrial.
Oh, okay. You've never met in person. Okay.
No.
Physically.
Physically. Well, that's not to say that has not happened. It just means that I cannot remember it. There is an episode of Missing Time that took place in the year 1999 or 2000 when I was up in Huntsville, Ontario, and I have not been able to get the memory of what happened of that incident. Even I went under hypnosis, and it's still blocked. But I found other things that happened under hypnosis that were completely profound. And that I realized that I had a multidimensional connection to these extraterrestrial beings who are known as the mantids, or some people, they're kind of known as almost like insectoid extraterrestrials, but they're called the mantis, because I saw them. I met them when I was under hypnosis. I was told, okay, go as far forward in the future as you can, and I did. And I was met by these three. At first, I thought they were just grays, like the aliens that people see with the big heads, the big black eyes. They looked like that, but these ones looked different. Their eyes went to the back of their heads, and their heads looked more like these praying mantises.
Right.
Now, I was under hypnosis, and I had never seen beings like this before. I didn't know what I was looking at, and I even lied to the hypnotist when she asked, "What do you see?" And I said, "Oh, I see three grays," and they're handing me this ball of light. No, I actually saw it. They looked like praying mantis. It was 3 months after that when I was watching a video with a woman. Her name is Susie Hansen, and she was talking about her experiences on board a craft, and she also was saying about how the mantis were overseeing everything. And then she held up this picture she drew of one of them, and that's when I completely freaked out, going, "Oh my God, that's who I saw under hypnosis."
Right.
So under hypnosis, I saw these beings who I didn't even know existed. So I realized I have some kind of connection to them in some kind of multidimensional way that I'm still trying to understand and process. And through my interactions with my guests, I'm starting to understand more of how the universe works in this multidimensional universe that we live in.
Could you have been abducted?
I was. I know that I was.
I mean, could these dreams be not interdimensional, but you could be an abductee, right?
I know that I was, because
so maybe could these experiences you were just referring to be that?
No, I think what I was seeing was I was seeing myself in the future. I was transported to sometime in the future. I don't know when, because it was the last moment I remember of my existence. Because what happened was they hand me this ball of light saying, "You've completed your mission." I take this ball of light, I put it into my mouth, and my mind expands into nothing but complete light, and I become one with Source again, back in the Source, the primordial soup of the Creator. That's my last moment of what I remember. Pretty crazy, but this is what I saw under hypnosis. But what happened to me in 1999 was we were at my I was in a band at the time called Firestorm, and we were up at our singer's cottage, and we went for a swim at nighttime down in the lake, and it was like 10,000 stars in the sky. It was a full moon, and we're having a great time. And then all of a sudden we hear this sound, which is like this, almost like a firecracker. This goes, and we look up, and there is this object that would look like the size of the moon that was on fire, was coming hurtling right towards us. And I know it was coming right towards us. Its trajectory was right towards us because I could see flames shooting completely all around the perimeter of this circular thing. And it was coming flying at us. It wasn't like it came out of space and came across the atmosphere. No, this thing was like a couple thousand feet away from us all of a sudden. Like it just appeared and came flying at us at a really high speed. And keep in mind that I always wanted to have a UFO experience. So whatever was going on, I was really aware and wide awake, staring at this thing, waiting for something to happen. And it came flying at us, and then all of a sudden it was like this flash, and it was gone. And we're like, whoa, what the heck was that? Was that a UFO? And we just kind of passed it off like, whoa, that was really weird. And then we just kind of went on with our day. 10 years later, I'm like, wait a second, stop, hold it, rewind. Things just don't disappear. Things just don't all of a sudden disappear and are not there anymore. It's like there was a flash, and I don't remember what happened.
Right.
There was missing time. It was like it was like watching a movie. The best part of the movie's coming up, and all of a sudden somebody hits a fast forward button to the next chapter, and you're on to the next chapter. That's exactly what I experienced. It was like, wait a second, no, that's not how life works.
Right.
So I got some kind of missing time. I don't know what happened there, but it was instantaneous, where all of a sudden the thing just was not there anymore.
Right. Well, I was just wondering. So that's another situation or another experience. I was wondering if the praying mantis, the mantis beings, if they were could possibly have been an abduction situation. But you're saying that's actually more of an interdimensional dream kind of thing, right?
It's a multidimensional thing, and the more I understand, the more I've understood from talking to my other guests who've been with the Greys. Judy Carroll speaks about it in great detail. Sherry Wild speaks of it in great detail, and what the Greys are teaching us is that we are all multidimensional beings.
Right.
And it's taken me a while to kind of understand what that means, but basically, we live in the third density. These dimensions go all the way up to like 12 dimensions, and we are each step of the way as we learn our lessons and we reincarnate and become higher and higher in these levels of dimensions.
Right.
The mantids are very high up in the dimensional field, and what I was experiencing was something of a much higher dimensional that I saw, which kind of made sense if I was seeing it near the end of my existence.
Right.
This is from my own what I'm trying to understand from my own what I can make sense of.
Right. We're going to start winding down the show, but there's a comment I just want to make again about the need for this kind of spirituality, this higher level of consciousness. So I like to often quote from Michio Kaku, the well-known physicist who writes popular books in physics. And I heard him interviewed years ago on Coast to Coast AM. I think it was Art Bell. It might have been George Norrie. And I think it's also written in one of his books that I have. But what he stated was, and I don't know if it's his view today, but it certainly was his view a few years ago, that he has this certain levels of civilization. We're really on the lowest level. We're 100 years away from, I think, level 1, type 1, I think he called it. But in his view, and in the view of many other scientists and others, the odds of the human race making it in the next 100 more years, the odds are against it, in his opinion. I don't think I'm misstating it. I think that's what he said. I know he said that. Now, just because of the fact that we have so many means of destruction, and it's just look at the world today, and it's just going to get worse. So it would seem. I'm an optimist. I don't feel that way. However, you can certainly see how that point of view could be true. I mean, there are so many ways that our race that the human civilization can totally obliterate itself, with either through nuclear weapons, through biological warfare, chemical warfare, not to mention some geological catastrophe. But he was referring to man-made disasters. Now, if that were the case, what we're talking about here, getting the help of a vastly superior, intellectually and morally superior race, civilization, species, however you want to call it, that might be the only salvation. Because you know why? I think there's a lot of inspired people around. I'm impressed by many inspired people, but you know what? When you look at the whole thing, there's so much ignorance and stupidity and violence and anger out there that it's very disconcerting. So maybe this is the only hope. Anyway, I just wanted to chime in on that, but also I want to, Kevin, once again, because I know Scott's been generous, that he's given us a little bit of time here. You do have one more musical piece. I'm thinking about maybe if you want to talk about it, and then we can maybe use the music as a close, or we could come back and talk for a bit and then close out the show. So why don't we do it that way? Is that you want to play that last tune?
Sure, we can play that last tune. Yeah. But actually, before we play it, I was going to say because you're on a really good path, path there.
Thanks.
In regards to us as humans and where we are going. Because I can tell you, this is very important for listeners to understand, is that another thing that that the Greys, like when they've met with Sherry, they keep emphasizing, and this is her last meeting that she had with her contact, was that he says, "You're running out of time. We're running out of time. We're running out of time."
Mm-hmm.
Right now, there are things that are going on this planet. There's going to be a huge shift going on, and information has been shared with me that there is a lot of things going on, and we are very close to an actual alien disclosure.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we are very close. There are things being worked on behind the scenes to make it happen faster. So people need to be prepared. Their paradigm is going to be turned. We are turning a page in human history. However, be very cautiously aware that it's not going to be what you think. Okay? It's not going to be the aliens landing on the White House and saying, "Hey, we're here. We're here to teach you how to raise your consciousness and raise your, become a higher level being." No, that's why they stayed out of the picture. So just got to be aware that there could be the alien disclosures. From what I understand, it probably is not going to be how we think it's going to be. It could be something like like an evil, basically like a fake UFO attack, make people think that aliens are evil, because there's powers on this planet which are trying to keep us in control, and they've kept us asleep for 1,000 years, keeping us in a certain state of consciousness, took our power away, and they're trying to keep our power away, and they're going to do everything they can to keep your power away and keep you locked in your third-dimensional thinking. These scientists who think you can only prove anything through scientific method, well, good luck. You're fortune to pie.
So the disclosure will really be like a phony disclosure, like fake news. In other words, it would be a phony. It would be a put on, but to scare people essentially.
It's going to be an inside job to change people's conscious psyche, because people are very easily manipulated, and they've been putting out all these evil alien movies for the last 30 years. Why do you think they're doing this? It's because they are conditioning people. This is how they do it. They condition people, think, alien.
So what's the point? I mean, into submission, into kind of an autocracy, something? I mean,
This is the battle of good and evil. You have to realize, and this is what I found out. The Vatican Church has known about this. They've always known that there are extraterrestrials in the Bible. They've always known this. The Bible has been purposely manipulated. Scripture has been purposely manipulated and twisted, and they've taken it all out of the Bible. I know this because one of my contacts is has direct contact with the Vatican. The word cloud is not cloud in the Bible. It actually means object. It means craft.
I see. Right. I see. Well, yeah. So I'd like to talk to you more another time. Exactly about the what you said about the disclosure being a kind of not what we expect. It's kind of a fake thing to intimidate, to scare people. But I'm a little bit unclear exactly of the intent. It's kind of interesting, Grant Cameron, your friend and the famous ufologist. He said he was actually dedicating all his work to a disclosure until he decided, he wanted to focus on consciousness, because that's really what it's all about, right? So he had that transformational. He was all about disclosure, but then I think he came back to disclosure because for some reason he really needs to, but really his focus is on consciousness, right?
He's come back to disclosure because of our mutual friend Chris Bledsoe.
Oh, I see. Right.
Chris Bledsoe is part of this. Is part of helping this disclosure. He's very much a part of it, and there's a lot of things that are going on behind the scenes right now.
So what I'd like to do now, that we need to wrap up the show. You've been it's been a great show. I've been really enjoyed it. And I was wondering, Scott, if after I close out, maybe what you can do is use Grant's third cut, his third composition, as the closing score, closing music. Can you do that? Is that possible?
Certainly.
Why don't we do that? So, we're going to close out the show now. But before I do, I would just want to say a few things. And the first thing is, Kevin, why don't you just describe this piece that Scott's going to play?
Sure, absolutely. This song is called "Battle for Rome," and it was actually inspired by a video game. It was an Xbox One video game called Rise, Son of Rome, where you play a Roman soldier. And watching the trailer of this video game, it inspired me to write this song, which I thought would sound like something you hear in a video game. And this song ended up becoming my #1 single. It was released even before the album was released, and it just took off.
Great.
People just love it. In fact, actually, I had it played on a show called was it Apollo LA Radio in Los Angeles, and it's they're mostly hip hop artists who listen to this artist show. But this song was actually played in their show, and one of the top guys who rates the song said, "Man, this sounds like something you hear in a video game." And then when I told him the truth, truth. He's like, oh my God, I knew it. So, yes, this song is like, it sounds like a video game.
Well, I think it's going to be a cool way to end the show. And also, I must say that it's a little bit apropos in terms of following up the topic that you were just discussing about the disclosure having some kind of nasty connotations to it. So I think it'll be appropriate. Also, I want to remind. What's that? Yeah,
this is the Battle for Rome.
That's right. Now, I want to first of all thank Kevin Estrella, and he for joining me. And as a matter of fact, I want to invite everybody to his show, and his show on ArtistFirst Radio is Pyramids on Mars, UFO Radio, and I will be his guest. This is Tuesday, May 2nd at 11 p.m. Is that correct?
I believe that's right. Let me just take a look.
Yeah, Tuesday, May 2nd at 11 p.m., I believe.
That's right.
Great.
Yes.
Yeah, so why don't you join us, and we're going to actually begin to close out the show. I want to really thank Kevin so much for guesting on the show. I really appreciate it. I had a lot of fun. And
thank you, Dr. Strange. I had a wonderful time on your show.
Well, strangely, so have I. and I really enjoyed it, and hopefully we can do it again. For links to my book, Ethical Empowerment, my philosophical counseling and hypnotherapy practice, and the Social Philosophizers Club, please visit arthurdschwartz.com. I also want to remind people about Kevin and his links. It's easy to remember. It's pyramidsonmars.com. Also go to the Artist First radio page for Pyramids on Mars, where you'll see his radio show. And in both sites, you have the store to all his products and music and great stuff. And so this is Arthur D. Schwartz reminding you to live well and think deeply. So until next time, good night, everybody.